I wasn't supposed to remember the moment as clearly as I do now. It was meant to be nothing, just a few seconds in a quiet corner of the house while my girlfriend stepped out to take a phone call. But the way her older sister looked at me, it's been living under my skin ever since. We were in her family's small, sunlit bookstore, the one that smells like dust, old paper, and peppermint tea. I'd come along because my girlfriend needed to pick up a few things she'd left there during the week. I was trying not to look too out of place, standing between tall wooden shelves that creaked every time someone breathed. Her sister, Mara, was behind the counter, flipping through invoices with a pen tucked behind her ear. Mid-40s, confident without trying. The kind of woman whose presence settles into a room before she even speaks. She wasn't trying to look beautiful. She just was, in that quiet, practiced way of someone who has already survived half a lifetime. She glanced up at me once, then again, longer the second time, as if she couldn't help it. My girlfriend nudged me. "You'll be fine here, right?" "I need to make a call," she said, already halfway toward the back door, phone in hand. "Yeah, sure," I replied. The door closed, leaving the bookstore oddly silent. Mara stepped out from behind the counter with a box of new arrivals in her arms. "You don't have to stand there like you're waiting for a fire drill," she said, voice smooth but a little amused. "You can help me shelve these. Unless you're scared of books." "I'm not scared," I said, though my voice cracked a little. Not from the books, but from something else. Something about the way she held eye contact a beat too long. She smirked, just barely. "Good. Come on then." I followed her through a narrow aisle. The box wasn't heavy, but she held it like it was nothing. The sleeves of her sweater were pushed up to her elbows, revealing faint ink marks, probably from signing shipments earlier. She wasn't wearing perfume, but there was this soft, warm scent around her anyway, something like bergamot and old leather. "So," she said, sliding a book onto a high shelf. "How's my sister treating you?" "Good. Yeah, she's great." I realized I was talking too fast, so I stopped. Mara didn't comment on it, but one side of her mouth lifted like she'd noticed. We worked in silence for a minute, the sort of silence that feels like it's waiting for someone to breathe wrong. I reached up to place a hardcover beside hers, but the shelf was just a little higher than I expected. I had to stretch to get it in. "Here," she murmured. Her hand brushed mine, not a full touch, barely a passing moment. But it was enough to feel a jolt run through me. My fingers tightened on the spine without meaning to. "Sorry," I said quickly, pulling my hand back. "For what?" She looked directly at me, her eyes steady and unreadable. "You didn't do anything." But her voice dipped softer at the end, just a shade, and it made my stomach twist. I tried to look away, but she stepped a fraction closer, like she wanted to read what was happening behind my eyes. Her breath warmed the air between us. Then, the back door slammed. My girlfriend's footsteps echoed through the shelves. Mara didn't step back right away, and for a heartbeat too long, neither did I. She finally moved, clearing her throat and sliding another book into place. But before she turned away entirely, her fingers brushed my wrist, deliberately this time. Barely a second of contact, almost nothing. Almost. And now, I can't stop replaying that tiny, electric moment in the aisle of her bookstore, wondering why it felt like the start of something I had no business feeling at all. The second time I saw Mara alone, it wasn't planned. It never is, I guess. The moments that matter most always come disguised as accidents. My girlfriend had asked me to drop off a box of old textbooks her family wanted to donate. The bookstore was supposed to be closed that morning, but the lights were on, soft and uneven, like someone had turned them on halfway through deciding whether it was worth it. I pushed the door open. The bell chimed once, a small, tired sound. Mara was sitting on a stool behind the counter, her hair tied up messily, glasses low on her nose. Not the confident, composed version I'd seen before. This version looked worn down, like she'd been up too early or too late, maybe both. "Oh," she said, straightening, but not fast enough to hide the slump in her shoulders. "I didn't expect anyone." I lifted the box. "Just dropping these off." She nodded and motioned toward the counter. I set the box down. Her hands hesitated on the lid before opening it. as if even that small action required more energy than she wanted to admit. "You okay?" I asked quietly. She gave a small laugh, not a happy one, more like a breath that forgot what it wanted to be. "I'm fine. Just long morning." That was it. No explanation. Just that tired pause after just, the kind that says more than the rest. I didn't push. She wouldn't have answered anyway. But I noticed things I hadn't before. The faint swelling under her eyes, the smudge of ink on her thumb, the way she kept rubbing the bridge of her nose like a headache had been lurking since dawn. "Need help?" I asked. "No," then, after a beat. "Actually, yes. If you're not in a rush." She gestured to a stack of boxes near the front window. New inventory. Or old returns. I couldn't tell. But I followed her anyway. We worked side by side. Or rather, I worked. She tried, then stopped, then tried again. She kept getting quiet, drifting into these moments where she stared at a book too long, as if remembering something she didn't want to. "You sure you're okay?" I said again, softer this time. She didn't look at me. She just exhaled slowly. "Some days I don't feel strong enough for all this." Her fingers brushed the edge of a paperback. "But I keep pretending I am." That wasn't the confident sister I'd first met. This felt like the real one, the one she doesn't let people see. "You don't have to pretend with me," I said before thinking. Her head turned sharply, eyes narrowing with something halfway between surprise and caution. Not anger, more like, "Why did you see that?" She didn't respond. Instead, she moved to the next box, but her hands trembled slightly when she pulled the tape. That small shake did something to me, something I tried to swallow. "I can finish the heavy ones," I said, trying to keep it casual. She finally met my eyes. "Thank you." The words sounded unfamiliar on her tongue, like she didn't say them often. We worked in silence again, but it wasn't the same kind of silence as last time. This one felt connected, like something unspoken was threading itself carefully between us. When I handed her a book, our fingers grazed again, barely a brush. But she didn't pull back this time. She let the moment stay, just a second longer than she should have. Her breath hitched, a tiny sound, and she looked down, pretending to read the cover. I pretended to believe her. When I finally stepped toward the door, she didn't say goodbye. She just murmured, "See you, whenever," almost too quietly to hear. And that tiny, hesitant whenever followed me all the way home, sitting warm and heavy in my chest like a secret I wasn't supposed to keep. It was the rain that kept me there longer than I should have stayed. Not a dramatic storm, just that steady, drenching kind of rain that makes the whole world feel smaller, quieter. I had stopped by the bookstore because Mara had texted my girlfriend asking for help moving a display table. Except when I arrived, she was alone. Again, my girlfriend was running late from class. Again, Mara was kneeling on the floor, struggling with one of the table legs that refused to line up with the screws. Her hair had come loose from whatever she'd tied it with, falling over her cheek in a soft, uneven wave. She didn't notice me at first. "You look like you're losing a fight," I said. She huffed out a laugh without turning. "I'm losing many fights today. This is just the one you get to witness." I crouched beside her. "Let me try." She hesitated, then handed me the screwdriver with a tiny sigh, the kind you only let slip when you're too tired to hide it. The rain smacked hard against the windows. The lights buzzed faintly. The whole shop felt wrapped in a quiet too real, too personal. As I adjusted the leg, Mara sat back on her heels, rubbing her arms as if the air had suddenly chilled. "Rough week?" I asked. "Rough year," she muttered, then blinked like she regretted saying it out loud. I didn't push. I just tightened another screw. But after a moment she spoke again, her voice low, softer than I had ever heard it. "I thought things would feel easier by now. You know, at this age." She gave a humorless smile. "Joke's on me." I glanced up. Her eyes weren't guarded this time. They were open, tired, too honest. A part of me wanted to say something comforting. Another part wanted to say something I shouldn't. I said neither. Instead, I shifted closer to reach the last screw, and my knee bumped hers. Lightly, accidentally, but not insignificantly. She inhaled sharply and didn't move away. We were too close now, closer than made sense for two people who were supposed to have nothing between them but polite friendliness. I could see the faint line of her collarbone, the tension in her jaw, the soft pulse at her throat. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "You're not," I replied. She gave a small, surprised laugh. "I suppose I'm allowed one off day." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe you're just letting someone see the parts you usually hide." Her breath caught. Not dramatically, just a tiny, involuntary sound. Her fingers curled around the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. "That's dangerous," she whispered. "I don't let people see me like that." "I noticed," I said. We stared at each other for a long moment. Too long. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, and then away so fast I almost thought I imagined it. Then, her phone buzzed sharply on the counter. She stiffened. The caller ID lit up the screen. Mark, work. But the way her shoulders tensed made it clear it wasn't just work. Or wasn't only about work. She didn't answer. Didn't move. Just looked at the phone like it was something that could break her if she picked it up. "You should get that," I murmured. "I don't want to," she admitted, voice thin. The rain hammered harder. The phone buzzed again. A second. A third. Finally, she reached for it, but her hand faltered, hovering just above the screen. And in that fragile pause, in that breath before she pulled herself back together, she looked at me with something raw, unguarded, almost pleading. I didn't touch her. I didn't speak. But my hand moved, instinctively, almost, stopping just short of hers. Close enough that the warmth between our fingers felt like the beginning of something neither of us had any right to want. She noticed, and she didn't pull away. The rain finally eased, but the silence that replaced it was heavier than the storm. Mara didn't take the call. She let the phone go dark, then set it on the counter with a carefulness that looked a lot like fear disguised as control. Neither of us spoke for a while. I stayed kneeling beside the table, hands still resting on the unfinished screws, pretending I needed another moment to tighten them. Truth was, I just didn't trust myself to stand yet, not with whatever had flickered between our almost touch. Mara leaned back against a shelf, arms folded tightly across her chest, as if she were holding herself together from the inside out. "This isn't," she started, then stopped. Her throat worked. She tried again. "This isn't how things are supposed to be." I looked up. "What things?" She exhaled through her nose, slow, frustrated. "You know what I mean." I didn't answer, partly because I did know, partly because hearing her say it felt like stepping onto a cracked floor. She stared at the half-assembled table like it might offer a script. When it didn't, she pressed her palms to her eyes and let them fall again. "I don't understand what's happening," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't shaking, but it was close. "You mean between us?" The words slipped out before I could soften them. Her eyes lifted to mine, sharp, startled, conflicted. "Don't say it like that. How else am I supposed to say it?" She looked away, jaw clenching. "You're young. And I'm you," I finished. That brought her eyes back to mine. But she held the stare too long this time, as if weighing whether to trust it or run from it. We were close again without meaning to be. I'd stood at some point, and she hadn't moved back. Her breath brushed my collar, faint but noticeable. She swallowed. "This isn't normal." "No," I murmured. "It's not." A long silence stretched out, slow, unblinking, heavy enough to shift the air. "It shouldn't feel like this," she whispered. "What does it feel like?" Her lips parted, then closed. She looked down at her hands, tracing the faint ink smudge on her thumb with her finger, like grounding herself. "Wrong," she said finally. "And confusing." "Confusing how?" Her laugh was short, almost bitter. "Don't make me say it." "I'm not making you do anything," I said. "I just don't want to pretend." That word made her flinch. Pretend. She pushed away from the shelf and took a few steps as if she needed space, but her feet stopped sooner than she meant them to. "This is a line," she said softly. "I don't know who's crossing it anymore. Maybe both of us." Her gaze snapped up again, this time unguarded, almost wounded. "This can't happen," she whispered. There was no anger in it, just fear. Fear of herself more than me. I stepped back to give her space, but she moved forward instead, barely half a step, like her body hadn't gotten the memo her mind was trying to send. "Mara," I said, her name feeling strange and careful in my mouth. "Tell me if you want me to walk away." She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the door, looked back at me, and the war in her eyes said everything she couldn't. Finally, in a voice so low I almost missed it, she said, "I don't know how to want something I'm not allowed to have." I didn't breathe for a second after she said it. Not because of the words themselves, but because of the way she said them, like they weren't meant for me, like she'd slipped and revealed something she never lets out. Mara turned away quickly, as if the air had become too sharp. She walked toward the counter, fingers trembling as she reached for her phone. Not to answer it, just to hold it, like a shield. "I shouldn't have said that," she murmured. "You didn't say anything wrong." She gave a small, humorless breath. "You think that makes it better?" I took a few steps toward her, slowly, giving her enough time to stop me if she wanted. She didn't. When I reached the counter, she was staring at her phone screen again. The missed call log was open. Not just one call from Mark. 4. All spaced a few minutes apart. But it wasn't the calls that caught my eye. It was the notification sitting above them. A voicemail, time-stamped earlier that afternoon. She saw me looking and tilted the phone away, but not before her expression cracked. Just a tiny fracture, enough to see the hurt behind it. "You don't have to hide it," I said gently. "Yes, I do." Her voice wavered for the first time since I met her. "Some things aren't for sharing." "Mara." She pressed the phone to her chest, shutting her eyes. And then, without warning, she said, "He left me, you know." I froze. She didn't look up. "My ex-husband." Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. "Everyone thinks I'm the one who ended it. It's easier that way. Cleaner. But he left me. Quietly. Slowly. Bit by bit until he was already gone." She swallowed. "And I got used to pretending that didn't hurt." I didn't say anything. I knew better than to fill that silence. "When I got that voicemail today," she continued, thumb brushing the edge of her phone, "it wasn't him. It was his assistant. Telling me he's getting married." The words weren't dramatic. She didn't cry. She just folded a little. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone had lightly pushed on a door already cracked open. "I thought I was over it," she whispered. But hearing it out loud reminded me that I'm not the person someone chooses. Not first. Not ever. That hit something in me. Something protective. Something I wasn't sure I should feel. "You don't know that," I said softly. She gave a small, tired smile. "You're kind. But you're young. Being kind probably feels easy to you." "It's not," I said. And she looked up. Really looked, like she was trying to understand whether I meant it. For a moment, neither of us moved. The rain had stopped entirely. The bookstore felt too quiet, too intimate, like the world had stepped outside to give us room. She exhaled, long and shaking. "You remind me of someone," she said suddenly. "Who?" "Myself," she said. "A long time ago, before I learned to expect so little." That landed in my chest like a weight. She stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, and set her phone on the counter between us. Not as a barrier. More like she was letting go of something heavy. "I shouldn't be saying all this," she whispered. "But you are," I said. Her fingers brushed a book spine beside me, aimlessly, like she needed something to touch just to keep steady. She didn't look at me when she spoke her next words, maybe because she was afraid of what she'd see reflected back. "It scares me," she said quietly. "How easy it is to talk to you." She didn't step closer, and I didn't either. But the distance between us felt like the thinnest thing in the room, one breath away from breaking. I stayed longer than I should have, sitting on the edge of the counter while Mara rearranged a stack of books. Neither of us spoke, but the air between us had changed, lighter, yet heavier at the same time. It wasn't the kind of weight that suffocates. It was the kind that settles, quietly, because it's finally been acknowledged. She moved a paperback from one shelf to another, then paused. Fingers lingering on the spine, she exhaled and looked at me, eyes softer now, less guarded. "I don't think pretending works anymore," she said. Not as a question, not as a confession, just a statement. And somehow that was enough. I nodded, unsure how to answer without breaking the fragile honesty we'd built. I didn't have to. We were both quiet, aware that the truth had slipped into the room and stayed, unspoken yet undeniable. She leaned back against the counter, and I shifted closer without thinking, letting the small space between us shrink naturally. Our knees brushed. Not an accident, not an invitation, just a subtle acknowledgement that proximity didn't feel wrong anymore. "You don't have to fix anything," I murmured. She shook her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I wasn't looking for someone to fix me. I just needed to be seen." I looked at her hands, the same ones I had noticed weeks ago, strong, capable, a little weary, and realized she had been carrying a quiet heaviness for years. And now, without fanfare, she was letting me be there. The bookstore smelled faintly of old paper and coffee, of rain on wood, of warmth finally settling in the corners. I didn't speak, she didn't either. We simply existed in the same space, letting the silence hold everything we couldn't say. Her hand moved, slowly, deliberately, brushing against mine. Not demanding, not searching, just grazing. And I didn't pull away. Instead, I let my fingers meet hers, resting together lightly, as if testing the possibility of something neither of us had dared to name. She tilted her head, glancing at me for the briefest moment, and in that instant, I felt the culmination of every small look, every accidental touch, every shared silence that had led us here. The storm outside had passed. The world beyond the bookstore could wait. "I think," she whispered, almost to herself, "this is the first time I've been completely honest in a long time." "Me too," I admitted. We didn't lean in. We didn't speak grand declarations. There was no dramatic gesture, no sudden kiss, no rushed decision. Just the quiet, mutual acknowledgement that we had found each other in the spaces between words, in the pauses, in the moments no one else could see. Her fingers twined gently with mine, tentative yet certain, and I felt it. The inevitability of our connection. The slow burn of weeks, months, unspoken truths finally landing softly in the right place. We sat there, side by side, letting the silence wrap around us, our hands linked without urgency, our breathing sinking in a rhythm that felt natural, earned. And for the first time in a long time, neither of us looked away. We just stayed there. Looking back now, months later, it all feels like a series of quiet moments stitched together, each one leading to the next without any fireworks or declarations. Just a slow unfolding that neither of us could have rushed. I remember the bookstore, the rain, the way Mara's hand brushed mine like it was both accidental and inevitable. I remember her laughter when it was soft and real, the kind that filled the spaces around her without trying. I remember her pauses, her hesitations, and the tiny ways she let me in without saying a word. I've changed, too. I've learned that love doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it's the patience to sit with someone in silence, the willingness to notice the little things, the tremor in a hand, the exhaustion behind a smile, the glance that lingers just a second too long. I've learned that caring deeply doesn't mean crossing every line immediately. Sometimes it's knowing when to stay, when to step back, and when to simply be present. Mara has changed in ways I see every day. She allows herself to be seen now, in ways she never did before. She laughs more freely, carries less of the weight she once hid so carefully, and trusts in small, quiet connections instead of pushing them away. Watching her grow, I've learned that love isn't about fixing someone or being fixed. It's about witnessing them, truly witnessing, and choosing to stay. Our story isn't dramatic. There are no grand finales, no declarations shouted across rooms. It's slow, messy, human, beautiful in the way only lived-in lives can be. The kind of love that lingers after the lights go down, in the quiet after the storm, in the simple touch of a hand that says more than words ever could. Sometimes I catch myself replaying the first moments, her smile over the counter, the soft catch in her breath, the way she'd look at me as if she were trying to understand what was happening inside both of us. And I realized that the magic wasn't in the big moments. It was in the accumulation of small, imperfect, truthful ones. We didn't rush. We didn't force. We let things unfold. Carefully, patiently, with the weight of honesty beneath every glance, every brush of fingers. And somehow, that made it more real than anything I could have imagined. Sitting here now, writing this, I feel that warmth again, The kind that comes from knowing you've found someone who sees you, who knows your scars and your doubts, and who stays anyway. It's quiet, yes, but it's steady. It's ours. And if this story made you feel something, even the tiniest flutter of connection, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?